The Section 230 Sunset Act is irresponsible and dangerous. What's the 230 Sunset? Let's talk about
Okay, it sounds technical, but it's relatively easy. There's something called the Communications Decency Act that was passed back when, and Tipper Gore was the person behind it. And the Supreme Court knocked out all of the Communications Decency Act except for Section 230. As Section 230 has become well known because many people blamed it for the censorship by social media companies on the web. And so Section 230, people say, we got to get rid of Section 230 and became kind of cause celeb. What people didn't realize is that the only reason that things like X or Truth Social or Rumble exist on the web is because of Section 230, which makes it so every two-bit lawyer, liberal lawyer across the country, can't sue a platform because they don't like what you and I are putting on it. Section 230 exempts platforms from being sued based on content the people who use the platform put on it as content. But it also allows for some level of moderation, which is where it runs into trouble with the idea of Facebook or others censoring conservative thought. So that's what it is right now. And as usual, things are much more nuanced than let's just get rid of it. Right now, Cathy McMorris Rodgers in a bipartisan bill with Frank Pallone from New Jersey have legislation that would just sunset, just eliminate Section 230. Section 230 were eliminated effective end of next year. It would, for all intents and purposes, Truth Social would last 2 months after that. Now, what you saw done to Parler a few years back, where it just was disappeared, that would be done exponentially faster with Truth Social, because Truth Social is more of a threat. And you'd see Rumble go by the wayside. Even Elon Musk would have a hard time maintaining even any semblance of a free speech platform if Section 230 went away. So that's the challenge. When you do things based on, I want to change something and I want to force there to be changed, so I'm going to do something crazy, which is what McMorris Rodgers is trying to do with this legislation. What you end up with is one of those deadlines, those fiscal cliff kind of deadlines that they're artificially setting, where the entire internet, all the interactive platforms from eBay to a lot of the Amazon services, anything that has a interactivity to it, would effectively be no longer viable from a financial standpoint. So so it's like putting a gun to a dog's head and say, join this fraternity or I'll shoot this dog. And that's what effectively Cathy McMorris Rodgers is doing. And oh, by the way, she's retiring.
I'm going to read a sentence out of your article. It says, however, internet platforms that allow content providers access to their web space are currently protected by these claims. The removal of Section 230 protection would force a review of every post on every website, resulting in the entire internet system, we know, breaking under the threat of civil litigation.
The fact is, if they sunset it, they don't replace it with anything, that's where you get into trouble. Effectively replace Section 230, which has content controls in it. I used to mistakenly think that the First Amendment was a bipartisan issue, people being in support of it, but I've learned that opposing the First Amendment is a bipartisan issue. So we have to try to figure out how to deal with this. But in terms of the specific bill on Section 230, the fact of the matter is it makes a bunch of liberal trial lawyers will be able to sue everybody out of existence, but they're going to keep the lawsuits just narrow enough that some of them will get paid off. But essentially, this is nothing more than a draining the web of all the interactivity. And that's what makes the web fun. And so if you're the no fun people are trying to eliminate any fun off the web, and honestly, information sharing and the capacity to have diverse opinions, because the only opinions that will be really allowed will be those that are sanctioned by the government, that are irrefutably not saying that this is the truth the government put out, no matter how much the government doesn't do that. The courts will say that's absolutely true. You can't sue based on that. So basically what you'll have is an internet that's nothing but Pravda, propaganda. And the old Soviet empire would be proud of, I don't think it's one that America wants.
We've been seeing them heading this direction all along, and now they're going to make it official.
They've gone around it a little bit, and that's because the Facebook and others have the ability to have some editing in terms of their platform. But 6 years ago, when we were talking about this and we're really worried about it and concerned about it, one of the things we did not know was that the FBI had somebody stationed in Silicon Valley going to Facebook and Google and others and saying, hey, we really don't like this speech. And it got intensified once Biden got into office. But we saw it during 2020 when the FBI and DHS, Department of Homeland Security, put in thought controls that you just can't talk about the COVID vaccine in any way that we don't like. You can't mention that COVID came from a Wuhan virus, came from the Wuhan lab, and where it started in Wuhan, China. You weren't allowed to say, gee, it seems pretty obvious that this outbreak came from the Wuhan lab. Okay, you had to go with a pangolin or something. Mm-hmm. So you could say that, and that's because you had a heavy thumb of government suppressing and threatening those big corporations like Facebook to take down, and we know Twitter in particular because we got the email files, to take down and censor certain types of speech. So the challenge may not have been as much Section 230. It might have been a whole lot more that we had a government who was trying to use cutouts in Facebook, Twitter, and others to censor speech. And we really haven't dealt with that because, quite honestly, there's not been a bipartisan agreement on how to. And every time we turn around, they expand the capacity of the FBI and Department of Homeland Security to monitor speech, not rein it in. So that's the problem. And it may not have necessarily had anything to do with Section 230. It may have had everything to do with the federal government suppressing speech.
And you offer solutions. I like that in your article. You say there are two solutions. Explain those two solutions and why you said this is the way to solve this.
What I'm going to ask you to do is read.
So, to completely dismantle the way the internet activity works is an attempt to extort unnamed changes from the social media. So the answer is to completely dismantle the way internet interactivity works.
Well, if they do this, that's what happens. Here's what Congress is doing, and Sharon, you're an elected representative, or at least what we're an elected representative. I'm sure you've experienced this in Nevada. You create a crisis where big corporations are in trouble. They have to come in and lobby you so everybody's lobbying for a different solution. Lots of money gets thrown around, and usually they kick the can for another 2 years so they can keep the lobbying money going. With the sunset provision, all they have to do is kick the can for 2 years. Say, we're not going to sunset it for 2 more years. And that way, they've got a perpetual money machine flowing into Washington, D.C. politicians and agencies. And so it's really a non-stop extortion racket from a political perspective. And everybody's job on lobbying, there's going to be big bidding wars over who can get favor with some key legislator. So they're basically creating a demand for political services on a biannual basis. That's extortion and blackmail. That's what it is. That's the net effect, whether they want to admit it or not. And the solution to this is a little bit different. You can basically break the internet. You could leave it alone. And the key thing usually is, unless something's irretrievably broken, break it more. But I think one of the things that they could do would be, or a lot of the intent with this, the stated intent, is to try to protect children from unknown harm that's being done. Child pornography is illegal. It's illegal on the web. Pornography directed at children is illegal on the web. All they have to do is spend some of those resources they have tracking J6 people and put it on pornographers who are trying to attract children. And maybe they might end it by getting some arrests simply by perusing the web. So that would be a solution. How about we reallocate FBI resources to something that might just be productive? So they could actually start enforcing the law. That would be one thing they could do. And secondly, if they want to put child safety, you have to do identification to enter websites and certain age requirements. They could do that, but one of the things they have to do is make it so small websites don't have to spend $50,000 to get age identity software put into place. So I would recommend that they do it for $5 million revenues and up in terms of the website, so they have enough revenue flow so that you don't put people out of business simply because they can't afford the software.
Before we go to break, Sharon, I think that software is already out there, Rick. It's called
I
Parents.
know it is. I know it is. And it's just not, if you're a small guy who's just trying to scramble by and you maybe have one programmer or something, it's pretty challenging to say, okay, I'm going to spend $50,000 in software.
The software to stop children from going on the web and seeing pornography
Parents,
is mom and dad, parents.
that would be really good. I think that's hardware. Yeah, that's a, yeah, the hardware is out there.
My parents.
Yeah, how about, that's what a concept. Parents actually intervene and monitor what their kids are doing on the web.